Thursday, August 29th, 1991, 2:19 p.m. Continuation. The Geometry of Space. Every orderly system must have an orderly basis for its construction, whether it be a little house or a skyscraper, one planet of a solar system, or the whole universe of countless solar systems. As light is the one thing of this universe, and the science of light is optics, the construction of the universe is not based on what the textbooks in optics tell you, nor upon what the textbooks on electricity and magnetism tell you. The Creator makes use of but two opposite curvatures of light waves as tools for creating this entire universe of visible light. With these two curved tools only, the centripetal spirals which compress light into heat and the centrifugal spirals which expand it into cold are created. See Figure 37. Figure 37 demonstrates the love principle of rhythmic balanced interchange, which the curved universe eternally repeats. To process the idea still further in our step-by-step descriptive process, to progress the idea still further in our step-by-step descriptive process, we print another diagram which shows how nature arranges its lenses. Figure 38 is a diagram of the sun, or planet, or any truly spherical body. There are 9 lenses, each one performing its own separate purpose. Study Figure 38 as we describe it. The two polar lenses are located at the blue ends of the spectrum, where heat is minimum. These are known in textbooks on optics as biconvex lenses. These lenses project light toward a mutual focal center and perform the work of compressing cold invisible light into hot visible light of varying intensities from the outside inward. The central lens is biconcave. It is located in the yellow and white ends of the spectrum, where incandescence is maximum. The other 6 lenses are known in optics as double meniscus lenses. All of these 7 centering lenses project light outward from within and inward from without to create the rings and spirals which you see upon the line of the equator. Now, take special note of the 2 lower lens diagrams, and you will better visualize how the centering 7 lenses in the 2 drawings marked A and B gradually become thinner as the suns lose their true spherical shapes and begin to oblate. This can be plainly identified in our planets. Our sun itself will begin its death process in the same way and develop increasingly great holes in it, which will grow bigger and bigger until it reaches the stage you see in the drawings marked C at the bottom of Figure 38. This is known as the Dumbbell Nebula. Take careful note that the center of gravity, which is in the drawing marked F, is but a point, but where the centers are extended, as shown by the X in drawings A and B, the whole areas become bigger and bigger, which makes the Dumbbell Nebula possible, and contributes to the final great ring like the one marked D, which is known as the Lira Nebula. The heavens are full of such dying suns. It is hard to realize that your own sun will die in this manner, but eventually will do so. New suns are continually being born, however, for our eternal Creator never stops thinking, and the universe never stops recording God's thinking by its interchangings of pairs of opposites, which constitute thought waves. The more you know the wave, therefore, the better you can command it to do your bidding. If you could visualize it objectively, it would look like a spherical diagram in a cosmic camera, which would turn inside out and outside in for each wave. This accounts for 2 things which science should know. One of them is that densities first increase from the inside toward the outside as holes in rings of light close up to become true spheres. The moment they become true spheres, densities then increase inward toward their centers. The other fact, as yet unknown to science, is that as waves turn outside in to create spheres, the color spectrum turns with them. The blue centers of the rings, and the red is on the rims. The blue centers the rings, and the red is on the rims. When true spheres have been formed, the red is on the inside, and the blue on the outside. Excellent color photos of the Lira ring have proven this fact. The great hole is sky blue, while the outside rim pictures the red end. This basic principle is true in all nature, for the one thing that gives continuity is growth. Nature grows, and there are no exceptions in her processes. Every tree in the forest and every flower in the garden is tubular until it fills its holes. The oak, mahogany, and ebony are a few examples. This even applies to growing animal bodies. Every bone is tubular until it needs strength at the joints. Its marrow extends strength outward from its center to give that strength. The arteries also are tubular until they reach a state of solidity in the heart as bones do in the joints. The blood within them extends its strength outward to them in its endeavor to escape. Likewise, the air tubes, lungs, food intake tubes, and bowels press outward from within to give back to the earth for repetition of that which has been given to them for the same purpose. Here also is irrefutable evidence to prove that atoms have no such nuclei as nuclear physicists believe. The textbooks and science articles picture all atoms as true spheres, even to their electrons. Nature's processes do not work that way. When they do become true spheres, their centers do not act like the glue which holds them together. They thrust outward with increased resistance to their compressed condition. In closing this discussion of the place which lenses fulfill in the creative process, we print two more diagrams. Figure 39 forcefully demonstrates the tremendous fires of the sun as they shoot out at 90 degrees from the sphere's axis of rotation on line with its equator, while figure 40 shows the gravity field which is created by that thrust and the direction of both thrusts of compression and expansion. Let us begin a new chapter, please. I am Germain. Chapter 4, Recording 3, Germain. Chapter 4, Recording 3, Germain, Thursday, August 29th, 1991, 2:43 p.m., Year 5, Day 13. Nature of Light. It is the nature of light to perpetually give of itself to every other light in all the universe, visible or invisible. This is why you of the light are described in that manner, for you are as God, giving. The darkness or evil only takes. That which is forever taking cannot merge with the universe, which is made up of only light. Therefore you find that evil is, by necessity, a thing of only the physical expression, for it is derived from the physical consciousness, ego, of the physical human species. That is why, further, evil is only present in the human species. It is also the nature of all light, visible or invisible, to re-give that light to every other light in all this universe. Light does not take other light, nor does anything in nature take. Taking is not known in nature's processes. All bodies in nature are composed of light, whether they are incandescent like suns or cool like planets, and all growing things upon them. Light given to these bodies continues their visibility by divided light waves pulsing within them. While they are able to sustain their pulsing motion, it is said that they live. When they are no longer able to continue their pulsing, it is said that they die. Living is expressing that light which has been given. Dying is but re-giving back into the one source that which has been given. All light comes from that one source and is re-given to that one source. That one source is the Creator, the Thinker, and the Knower of the universe, the Father, Mother of the universe, omnipresent, omnipotent, and omniscient. That is clearly descriptive of our Creator, for omnipresent means everywhere, omnipotent means the Father, Mother who has all power, and omniscient means all knowledge. We can no longer bring ourselves to use the word He for our Creator, for nothing has been created other than by fathers and mothers, mineral, vegetable, and animal. They, in turn, are creators of fathers and mothers. We use the term He simply because in your language expression it refers to a being, not sex in a sexual context. God, therefore, extends power to all things to create all things by that process which we call growth. The totality of meaning of knowledge is idea. God has but one idea, and that idea is creation. God divides his idea into many ideas and gives them form by the thinking process. Man is but one idea, and man also divides his idea into many ideas and gives them form by man's thinking process. The knower thinks love, and gives only love to all creatures of God's creations. Man's supreme desire is to love and be loved. But in this present state of his knowledge, he often creates fear and evil, and this fear and evil will destroy him until he realizes that love is all there is. All created things have sufficient knowledge or instinct, for their survival is idea. Animals can reason to some extent. Instincts fulfill the balance of their necessities. Vegetable life has its own way of protecting its body from being destroyed by its ability to grow. Although it has no means of protecting itself from destruction by defending itself as animals do with their claws and teeth, and as man does with his armaments, it knows how to become strong by resisting winds and refolding itself in winter weather to again unfold by the warmth of God's light. Mineral life has no such protection, but to freeze itself in the light which created it, and again melts through the heat of that very same light. It will surprise the deepest thinker and knower among men to be told that God creates only two things, water and fire. Just as two curvatures have been created as the only tools for creating the universe, so also have only these two substances been created. Cold wetness and hot dryness constitute the bodies of all created substances we call matter. Cold wetness surrounds our suns and prevents them from disappearing by the heat of their own fires, even though millions of miles of cold space are needed to stop them from self-destruction. Magnetic storms sometimes cause the great fires which leap 100,000 miles or more into the cold wetness. In addition, the tremendous outward thrust of the solar corona itself increases the intensity of the sun's rays for millions of miles out into space, thereby affecting your Earth's temperature and weather even though you are 90 million miles away from the sun. Many times, huge suns conquer that cold wetness for a period and break away from their spherical forms by shooting great fires far out into space in almost successful attempts to escape. These near to exploding suns are known as novas, of which we see many in the heavens. The crab nova is a conspicuous one. We herewith print a familiar picture of it. See Figure 41. Also see Figures 42 and 43. The astronauts John Glenn and Scott Carpenter made an important notation while far out into cold space. At least this is the way the story goes. Glenn said he saw specks of light in front of his window. This proved that there was sufficient atmosphere way out in space for the compression of his fast-moving capsule to heat to incandescence, even though its temperature for such low potential need not be high. This portion of the story is absolutely true. Carpenter also saw these particles even at a lower potential, but enough to give them body form. He reported that those he saw were snow. That report substantiates pretty well our statement that one of the two things which God created is water. We need not prove that the other is fire, for fire is the consumer of all things. We will return now to our discussion on the nature of light. Science makes one grave error in its conception as to what light does. In textbooks on optics, refer to constantly to parallel rays and picture them in their diagrams. The fact is that there are no parallel rays of light. This should be beginning to ring a lot of bells within the heads of photographers and motion picture inventors and innovators as to photographic projection, photographic equipment, and right through to the technology of actually photographing thought patterns in holographic form as readily as any other object. God will work with you. He will not do it for you. Even you who are totally layman students can prove it while sitting in your room at night with many lights turned on. You can readily see that every light spreads out to its rays in conical forms, which blend toward a plane of zero curvature. It then bends in converging conical rays toward its neighbor. Imagine the complexity of curvature as each light gives to the other. Imagine also what would happen to you who are sitting within the area of those many lights. If the rays were parallel, not one of those rays would lose its strength, and their combined heat would burn you to a crisp. The heat from the sun would likewise burn the planets to a crisp. But you know that is impossible, for its light must spread out through concavity from its center and grow weaker in intensity from that very center. If that is true of just one sun, imagine what the effect would be if all the stars of the heavens acted upon each other as the lights in your room would act upon you. Are you listening, Wally? We will now fully explain the reasons why every focal point sends its rays outward from its center radially, from its focus, as shown in the concave lens in upper drawing, see Figure 44, and in both convex and concave lenses in the lower drawings which have eliminated the parallel rays to concrete magnetic fields. As every physicist knows, a wave is a hollow sphere of light surrounding a zero cold emptiness. In other words, it is all whole. The supreme effort of nature is to fill that hole and produce solid spheres of intense heat. The reverse process then takes place by oblating the spheres and allowing holes to again grow until they have dissipated all of the heat to become as fully empty as they were in the beginning. That is what waves are for. They divide the undivided, static cold into a hot dynamic universe of motion, a three-dimensional universe from a non-dimensional one. This they do by developing a compression force which shortens long, cold, invisible rays into short, visible rays. Waves also create an expansion force which unwinds the hot, solid spheres into cold, empty ones. Nature winds them centripetally and conically, and unwinds them centrifugally in one equatorial plane, which is at an angle of 90 degrees from their conical axes. Know that within these sentences is the answer as to why these things show up on film pictures, which were not seen with the eye. The thing or substance was there, and in the reflection or response of the light, made it visible to the substance on the film through the lenses. Ponder this a while. You don't need to ask me or Otten about it. You will be given the answer as to how as you work through it. I ask this latter point because it is for you to know, not Dharma, and we cannot ask more of her in long explanations between us unless absolutely necessary, for we have dozens of equally important messages which must be gotten through just as this one. Be confident in your mission. You ones would not be chosen if you had not the ability to conclude your purpose. So be it. We print 3 diagrams to make the spiral principle more comprehensible. Figure 45 represents the vibrations of a harp string which multiply stillness into fast motion and produce audible tones corresponding to the octave principle of light waves. This drawing shows the spiral as though you were looking into the winding and unwinding of it, whereas that winding process takes place sideways from your point of view. You see it edgewise as we have indicated in the little drawing at the top. To make it even clearer to you, take a watch spring in your hand and look at it edgewise. Then turn it face you, and you will see it as an architect does in making his plan and elevation on the same paper. You ones here who mail packets to Wally may please fax this portion of the writing along with the pertinent diagrams. I want all information removed from the pages with the diagrams made available for your use. I do not want confusion of any appended verbiage. It would only cause great confusion. Dharma, you understand what I'm asking, so please just trim the paper suitably. He needs the information as quickly as possible. Thank you. In the lower left-hand corner, you will note the comparison between the sound of the harp string and the light, of the spiral windings and unwindings of compressing and expanding light. The windings cause that phenomenon which we call fusion. The unwindings cause the effect of fission. Figures 46 and 47 show the same principle as the harp string's winding and unwinding process. Also, the same spiral principle applies to its arrows. One points inward from without to compress or charge it centripetally, with more power, and the other points outward from within to dissipate that power by radiation. As a layman student, it would be helpful to you if we give you a homely and familiar example of nature's spiral winding and unwinding, conically and centripetally in many extending planes, and centrifugally in one equatorial plane which spins at an angle of 90 degrees from the axis of centripetal windings. The scientist will understand this without additional explanation. You are all familiar with the cotton fiber which looms spin into yarns and cloth, string, ropes, and other necessities for human existence. Why do men need to do this? Why does nature want to spin weak, invisible light rays into strong substances, just as man spins weak and almost invisible cotton and linen fibers into strong, visible fibers, like thin and thick ropes or strong cloths? Nature does it to manifest her many ideas which have been divided from her one idea of creation. Man does it in order to manifest one of his many ideas by being able to survive the changing weather and to perform work which also characterizes the idea he manifests. If you watch the workings of a loom which spins cotton into its various forms, you will notice that there are many threads which spin conically and centripetally into one thread or one piece of cloth. The more colors that are needed for the design of the cloth, the more complex the threads become. The same thing applies to the mother at home who knits yarns into thicker cords and cloths. She gathers them conically and in centripetal spirals and spins them into one stronger cord or cloth. The more the physicist can command this principle of the windings and unwindings of nature to produce visible light rays from invisible light rays, the more he can command and control gravity to perform his needed miracles. He has already learned to control it to a surprising extent, as we have already outlined, in spite of having almost all wrong information. There are three great miracles possible for man's usage in the world today. 1. Power projection from anywhere to everywhere, to wherever one wishes to project it, without the need of wires or cables. Tesla already had that scientifically perfected. 2. The power of converting solar rays to light and power. Tesla also had that well under development. J.P. Morgan himself buried these things from your use. Good old bankster that he was. 3. The power of transmuting one element of matter into another. Now you know that you can do this, for all you have to do is look at plain old table salt. It is just a matter of understanding physics as properly given. These three miracles of man's mind knowing will be discussed and their principles made crystal clear in another lesson. Actually, we have already presented it to you prior to this, but we shall repeat portions as a reminder. We will sort of end our brief textbook, for the new science built upon a new conception of the workings of nature, and will give clear directions for technically empowered men to make them possible again. The end result we desire to obtain is to make man see that the roadmap we are giving him leads to the very door of the creative source. He will then thoroughly know that the power of the eternal God is the only possible answer not only to the source of himself, but to the source of all creation. If we succeed in doing this, the atheism of part of the world will disappear, for no great nation will permit itself to fall behind the science standards of the God-believing free nations, if you make yours free, that is. It will end the disunity of the great religions which have brought fear into the world by preaching sin and evil and punishment during life and after death, through their conception of a God of wrath and vengeance. It will also bring balance into the world home and the family home. As a final achievement of colossal importance, it will end the degradation of women and place her as an equal by man's side, in proper perspective. These things having been achieved, the age of slaughter of such aeons long experiencing will end, and there will be brought into being the age of character, based on love and the oneness of all mankind, and that would be a worthy New World Order. You can do it if you want to. Summary. What you have been given in this series of lessons, and will be given in the next, could be enlarged into many volumes for more detailed clarification. However, these lessons bring to you new knowledge which, if properly utilized, will bring to mankind a surcease? Maybe they meant surplus. Properly utilized will bring to man a surplus of his hard labors, or surcrease? Maybe increase of his hard labors, for sustenance of his body, and a wealth from natural resources as yet unknown to man. We trust that the time has come in man's unfolding when he is ready to take this and use his earth's great natural supplies for the benefit and good of all mankind. This can only be accomplished if man has a way of life in which he lives the inviolate law of rhythmic, balanced interchange in all of his transactions, whether they be marital, societal, social, or business. And yes, you can expect to find God in each and every one of those things, right alongside self. Wheresoever you go, I go, he has told you. We continue to remind you of that fact. Are you always proud of where you take God, and proud to see Him witness and participate in all of your activities? When you are like the child who says, "Dad, watch me, look at me, see me," well, I think you get my drift. All of the glorious benefits of man's universe are of little avail if man does not live God's great law of balance. Until he does, he will have one tragic experience after another in his personal life, which would ultimately multiply into worldwide catastrophes. You must know that to know the wave is to know the secret of creation. To make you know the wave principle is the purpose of these lessons. For centuries, man has repeated the statement, God is light, and many there are who have thought of this God light as the incandescent light which they can see. That God has given the new knowledge of the universe to man at this crucial period in his unfolding must indicate to you that man is now ready for it. Thus is man given the tools for his use. The world needs new fuels, water, and metals for sustenance of an ever-increasing population, and they must be produced at nominal cost to be within the reach of all. Then the governments must be disallowed to consume them and keep them from the populace. You have a mighty but wondrous task at hand. The key to obtaining these necessary items is being herein given within the Pleiadian documents, so that you can have them in order to bring abundance and total change upon your expiring world. I ask God to help you see and hear your call to serve. We give this knowledge now to meet the world's needs, with deep desire and prayer that not only all man's needs will be met, but that by so doing a new era may come into being, wherein all mankind will become aware of its oneness with each other, through a greater understanding of the principle of life itself. For to know this principle is to know how each man is dependent on his fellow man for happiness and survival, since all living matter in this universe is a dynamic extension of itself. Working in unity, man will not only survive, but he will live abundantly and ecstatically, for he will then have become aware of who he is, what he is, and he will know his true purpose on earth by expressing the great laws of the Creator from whom he extends. With my warmest and most loving expression, I ask that you study these writings and stay with us as we move on into the revealing of some of the secrets of the universe to you and give you more complete picture of the ways and processes of God's glorious and inviolate laws. It is a joy beyond expression that I share in your receiving of these words, with the gladness which is reflected back unto me and my brothers of these dimensions. Blessings unto you, my brothers and beloved co-workers. The journey has been long and fraught with obstacles and challenges, but with pun intended, I do believe we are beginning to see the light at the end of the tunnel. Blessed be all who wait upon God, for in so doing comes the wondrous perfection of the sequences. I am Germain, Mitakuye Oyasin, for all my relations.